Thank you. Wow, this is loud. So I just learned how to say hello in Finnish. It's moi. And to say hello in Chinese is ni hao. So just some trivia for you. Thank you, George, my friend who's sitting right in front. My name is Edith Yeung. I'm actually born and raised in Hong Kong. I spent half of my time in San Francisco, half of my time in China. Very, very excited to be here. This is my first time ever in Helsinki, and it's really, really cold. I have literally only 12 minutes to go over about 10 things, important things that is for startup fundraising. So I'm going to do a really quick, by the way, this is actually me when I was 3 years old. I always try to be funny and do a little bit David Letterman, which is a really old school talk show host, of like sort of the top 10 lists. So this is my top 10 list in terms of startup fundraising for 2018. So number 10, there is a lot of money chasing very little few deals. And in the US, in 2017 alone, there's $31 billion worth of startup funds, venture capital funds were raised. And in China, by the end of 2015, there's 231 billion startup funds backed by the Chinese government. You're talking about billions and millions of dollars, and all chasing after you guys, the startup founder. And then at the same time, number 9, I don't know how many of you follow the crypto movement. I absolutely believe that ICO, initial coin offering, is here to stay. And in fact, this year alone, over $3 billion worth of ICO investment, and in fact, actually raised more money, a startup founder raised more money via ICO than early stage investors. And that actually really worried me. And in fact, it's true that Paris Hilton actually tried to help with ICO projects too. And there's more and more crypto hedge fund been starting, particularly in the US. And just 2017 alone, 90 new crypto hedge funds been started, which make up about 124 crypto hedge funds being raised. And think about it, if people like the TechCrunch founder just started an XRP fund, to somebody like Olaf from 4 million AUM to now over 200 million AUM in 10 months, I'm facing some really, really serious competition. Point number 7, well, buzzword investors are here to stay, means there are a lot of investors, the minute that you say AI, their eyes will get really wide open, or anything blockchain, they get really, really excited. And I found it so funny that I found a couple of tweets that literally people say that, the overlap, people say that they know blockchain, and they actually know blockchain. There's no overlap. And on top of that, I thought is really, really funny, is there's so many people last year, actually including myself, chasing after VR, and now all the VR experts are blockchain experts. It's hilarious. But they will continue to think about as a founder point of view, and I'm not saying that you should make stuff up or lie, but for sure if you say anything related to blockchain or AI or machine learning, deep learning, you definitely will at least get a phone call, an appointment. And then number 6, later stage investor don't want to be so late. They actually getting more earlier and earlier in terms of investments. Temasek have over 275 billion Sing dollars in terms of AUM, raising a small startup funds, a little bit over 200 million, just doing VC stage. And then on top of that, some of the big funds, you're talking about billion-dollar fund, are doing scout program, especially in Silicon Valley, to put in 100K, 200K. Imagine, because they don't want to miss out. Number 5, SoftBank effect. And Masayoshi-san is amazing and has been doing some really, really large deals, including Uber or WeWork for over $4.4 billion. And then Magic Leap, just a few weeks ago, raised another over $500 million Series D round, which many of us still haven't got a chance to look at the product yet. And if you look at the dollar volume in terms of later stage deal is getting higher and higher. What does that really mean? What that really means is some of these companies like Uber is delaying IPO later and later. And many of the early stage investors, sometimes like myself, will rather maybe cash out from some of the later stage investors rather than waiting for IPO. Number 4, Silicon Valley is not the only place for fundraising anymore. In fact, the Chinese, on average, in all series rounds, for round 1, if you look at the average Chinese first round investment is 1.3 million versus you only raise about 700K in the US. And pretty much every single round is 50 to 200% more if you're a startup raising in China. And according to myself, I think that in addition to Silicon Valley, there's many, many hotspots in the world in terms of fundraising. Beijing, Tel Aviv, these Silicon Valley, Beijing, Tel Aviv is definitely my top 3, and there are many, many amazing cities, and hopefully Helsinki will soon be also another hotspot for startup to raise money. Number 3, many, many governments really want you to come, and in fact, they give you a lot of incentive benefits, funding, to wanting to come and start. I'm born and raised in Hong Kong, and I can tell you, Hong Kong government welcome all of you to come and set up. And in fact, there's a lot of government grant and government funding to want you to set up offices in Hong Kong. But I do have to say, one of the best government that I have the pleasure to work with is actually the Israeli government. They did a really, really good job on a regular basis to get investor like myself on a regular basis will actually come to me and say, hey, I remember you are very interested in blockchain. Every 3 months, they will send me a list of all the blockchain investments, and they will do the matching, and they do a really, really good job. Or the Chinese government, if you want to go to China and set up an office, there's 1,239 accelerator incubators welcome you, and in fact give you tons of incentive, free office space, and potential investment for you to come to China. But of course, it's not that the US don't really want you to come, but it's definitely a little bit harder with Mr. President. Number 2, corporates really want you too, and in fact, corporate venture arms have over 160 really, really corporate VCs been super active in investing in startups. And these are some of the top 3, Intel Capital, Google Ventures, Salesforce Ventures, and I also work really closely with Qualcomm Ventures. These are all really, really great CVC wanted to get into and invest in early stage startups. And last but not least, as you know, that I spend a lot of time in mainland China, and I absolutely believe that the Chinese want you. I think that this is kind of funny. And in fact, there's very specific category and area that they get really excited, and definitely number 1 will be AI. And over 2.6 billion been invested in AI startup in last year, and China definitely wanted to be the number 1 AI country in the world and welcome all the talent to actually set up shops in China. And then Baidu just set up their own autonomous driving fund, so autonomous car is definitely another really hot topic in terms of investing. And then last but not least, you have seen many, many, many other coverage in terms of the One Belt, One Road program. And it's all sort of the China way of wanting to invest in any program related to sort of back to the Silk Road. If you're working on any project that related to that, there's definitely plenty of potential investment for you. In short, I think there's a whole bunch of other, I just came from Barcelona. I think there's a lot of really interesting, exciting healthcare, education startup, even though you may be international, because the Chinese market is so big. And a lot of the Chinese parents would rather spend over 50% of their household income for their child education. And I think there's a lot of plenty of opportunities for any of you who's thinking about AI, education, healthcare. There's definitely a lot of really interesting investors waiting for you. So in short, this is my top 10 list. There's definitely a lot of great deals, a lot of money chasing, not that many great deals. ICO is here to stay. If I'm an entrepreneur all over again, I may or may not take early stage VC money because crowd sales has been so popular and so efficient. The rise of crypto hedge fund, there's now a little over 100 crypto hedge fund, and I think there's going to be a lot more. Buzzword investors, which means that the AI blockchains, if you're working on that, at least I would be very interested. The SoftBank effect, there's definitely more and more larger stage, billions of dollar investments, and SoftBank is definitely leading the charge. Silicon Valley is not the only place to raise money. The government really wants you, corporate really wants you, and China absolutely welcome you. So chatbot investment is a little bit 2016. Is no longer one of the buzzword. If you're saying I'm working on another chatbot, there are actually chatbot or chat particular focus fund. The one that I can think of is definitely Slack. Slack actually have a Slack fund, particularly want to invest in chatbot related things. But I think, at least for myself, this is a little bit last year. I have a completely different talk sort of to prepare founders on pitching. But a few things to think about. Number one is, as a founder, you definitely need to do your homework before you even pitch, right? I just mentioned that I look at chatbot, but let's say if you're working on anything related to biotech and clean tech, I really have no clue. And on top of that, I focus on early stage. If you're working on very specific things, and most of the investors are actually really, really clear on what they're looking for, so don't waste your time on that. If in a particular conference like this, I would love to meet all of you, but at the same time, I think the key thing to meet any investor at a conference like this is spend literally 30 seconds to practice your elevator speech. To think about, if you already have launched your product, say that. If you launch, you have traction. Let's say you're working on a mobile app. What's your install base? What's your MAU? What's your DAU? If you're able to say that, if you're already revenue generating, say that. Throw in some numbers, because usually that's the one thing that all investors will remember, if you have it. And your purpose of going to meet an investor in a conference like this is to score a meeting. And in my case, it will probably a call. And I'm really good with email. If you send me something really short, in fact, don't even send a one-pager. I think a really well-written email with bullet point of your traction, usually, even if it's a cold email, will get some sort of reply. Because the key thing is that any investor want to know the CEO really know your numbers. So that's the key thing. Even though these are the buzzword from a technology point of view, many of these are actually going after B2B problems. So obviously, as the geeky side of me, love to learn about all these crazy on-chain, off-chain, or scalability issue. But at the end of the day, all the investors want to hear what are the exact problem that you're solving. And if you haven't noticed, one of the token projects I follow really closely is Stella. And they do a really good job on talking about, they just did another deal with IBM. They just launched this thing at another countries. At the end of the day, it's a lot of B2B related news. So think about, it's not purely just for technology, but also the way that you run your B2B business.
And that's it.
All right.
That's great.
Thank you so much for having me,
timing.
Daniel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Give it up for Edith Yeung from 500 Startups.